Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling a topic that's been unavoidable lately, climate change. But here's the twist, forget melting glaciers for a sec. We're digging into Climate Sisters, Resisting Ecocide. This book's all about the incredible young women worldwide who are taking on this crisis head on.
What's captivating is how it goes beyond just the science, though that's definitely in there. It delves into the activists' personal stories, their passion, their creativity, how they're tackling these huge challenges in such innovative ways.
It's a global movement, and the book doesn't sugarcoat how urgent it is. Even for someone like me who tries to stay informed, the climate glossary was eye-opening. The Earth's already warmed by 1.3 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. That's happening now, not some distant warning.
Exactly, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, sometimes literally. The book highlights how climate change hits harder in regions that contributed least to the problem. Places often still grappling with colonialism's legacy. Remember that Smith study from 2007 the book mentions, showed how these regions are most vulnerable to extreme weather, rising sea levels, climate injustice in action.
Which makes the work of these climate sisters even more vital, not just fighting for a healthier planet, but a fairer one too, ready to meet some of these amazing activists.
Absolutely. Let's hear their stories.
First up, Chile. Meet Angela Valenzuela. She's using music to make a difference. A singer-songwriter speaking out against environmental damage, advocating for social justice in Chile.
Music's power is its ability to connect with people on an emotional level. Transcends language, cultures, everything. Think about music's role in the civil rights movement. Creating unity, inspiring action. Angela's using that same power to rally people around environmental issues.
Makes you think how we could all use art, music in our communities to get people talking about climate change, right? Not just science and policy, but connecting with people's hearts too.
Exactly. And Angela's story highlights the specific challenges activists face in different parts of the world. Chile's been hit hard by climate change, melting glaciers, water rights conflicts, those intense wildfires.
A harsh reminder this crisis is playing out differently everywhere.
And often, it's local activists like Angela on the front lines, pushing for change, holding those in power accountable.
Speaking of powerful young voices, our next climate sister brings us closer to home, the United States. This is Alexandria Villaseñor's story. Might resonate with a lot of you, especially if you've experienced those terrifying California wildfires. Imagine being a teenager, visiting family for Thanksgiving. Suddenly you're surrounded by smoke from the campfire back in 2018.
That fire was devastating. One of the deadliest, most destructive wildfires in California's history. To live through something like that so young.
Well, that's exactly what happened to Alexandria. She has asthma, and the smoke triggered a severe attack. Talk about a wake-up call. This experience was a turning point. She dove into researching climate change, realized this wasn't some abstract problem, it was directly impacting her health, her future.
And that connection to personal experience is so powerful for driving action. Suddenly, it's not some distant threat. It's at your doorstep, literally affecting your ability to breathe.
And it wasn't just personal for her. Alexandria knew about Greta Thunberg, the Fridays for Future movement. So after the wildfire, she didn't just worry. She took action, started organizing climate strikes in front of UN headquarters, even co-founded the U.S. Youth Climate Strike movement. And she didn't stop there. Alexandria realized a lot of young people wanted to get involved, but didn't know enough about climate change to make their voices heard. So she founded Earth Uprising International.
Which is brilliant, really. Gets to the heart of effective activism. Knowledge is power. Without truly understanding the issues, it's hard to advocate for meaningful solutions.
Makes you think, how often do we actually talk about climate change with friends, family? Education, even on a small scale, can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely. Sometimes the most impactful actions start with a simple conversation, raising awareness.
Now for our next climate sister, let's travel across the globe to Kenya, meet Elizabeth Wanjiru Wathuti. Her story really highlights that deep connection between people and the planet, especially growing up close to nature.
Kenya, like many parts of Africa, is already facing the very real consequences of climate change. I'm curious, how have Elizabeth's experiences shaped her activism?
Well, in the book, she talks about witnessing deforestation firsthand as a child. Imagine forests you played in being cut down, streams you drank from drying up, becoming polluted. It's heartbreaking, but for Elizabeth, it fueled her desire to protect the environment.
It reminds us that for many people, climate change isn't some abstract concept, it's a lived reality. Their homes, livelihoods, survival.
And Elizabeth turned that experience into action. She founded the Green Generation Initiative, which focuses on nurturing a love for nature, environmental consciousness in young people. They've planted thousands of trees in Kenya.
That's incredible. A proactive approach, addressing the issue at its roots, fostering that sense of responsibility, connection to the natural world, reminds us that even amidst the challenges, there's hope, potential for change.
Speaking of challenges, our next Climate Sisters story is a bit of a wild ride. Might make you think of that satirical film, Don't Look Up.
This is Miranda Whelehan from the UK.
Oh, a comet, you say? That piques my interest. Tell us more about Miranda and her story. So picture this: Miranda's part of this activist group, Just Stop Oil, known for, let's say, their unconventional tactics to get their message across, ending new fossil fuel licensing, production, and they're not afraid to disrupt things to make their point.
Stop Oil has certainly made headlines with their methods, haven't they? Their actions, while controversial to some, highlight the urgency, especially among young activists, feeling like traditional protests haven't led to the systemic change needed.
Exactly. And Miranda found herself in the thick of it when she appeared on a popular British morning show. You'd think a conversation about the climate crisis on national television would be a good thing, right? But instead of a productive discussion, she was met with ridicule, dismissiveness, like a real-life "don't look up." Miranda's the scientist desperately trying to warn everyone while those in power just laugh.
It's a concerning parallel. The book draws that comparison so well. It often seems easier to dismiss uncomfortable truths, especially when they require significant societal shifts.
Right.
And climate change is complex. But that complexity shouldn't be an excuse to ignore the science or silence those raising concerns.
Beyond frustrating, right? In the book, Miranda talks about her fears of inaction, how people only seem to react when it's too late, worried that by the time everyone realizes how serious this is, it'll be too late to act. A chilling thought. And unfortunately, it's a fear shared by many scientists, activists, who see that gap widening every day between the urgency and the action.
It's valid. And Miranda's willingness to put herself out there, face that ridicule, speaks volumes about her dedication to a sustainable future. It takes courage to keep pushing for change, even when it feels like no one's listening.
Speaking of courage, ready to meet our final Climate Sisters. We're heading to Indonesia to meet not one, but two amazing young women, Melati and Isabel Wijsen. And get this, they decided to tackle plastic pollution when they were only 10 and 12 years old.
10 and 12 years old. That's remarkable. Just goes to show you age is no barrier to making a difference. To take on such a significant environmental issue at that age speaks volumes about the power of youth activism, that belief that you don't need to wait for permission to stand up for what you believe in.
They were literally kids, growing up in Bali, surrounded by the island's beauty, but also saw firsthand the devastating impact of plastic pollution.
And Indonesia, as the book mentions, is the second worst plastic polluter in the world. A problem with global repercussions, wouldn't you say? Plastic pollution doesn't respect borders, it contaminates our oceans, harms wildlife, even ends up in our food chain. An issue that demands a collective response.
And that's what Melati and Isabel understood even at such a young age. They started small but thought big, launching their campaign Bye Bye Plastic Bags, organized beach cleanups, gave presentations at schools, community events, even started distributing alternative bags to reduce plastic reliance.
It's about understanding that individual actions are important, but they're even more powerful when we can inspire collective change.
Totally. And they knew that to really tackle the problem, they had to think bigger than just beach cleanups. So what did they do? Gathered thousands of signatures for a petition, even staged a hunger strike to meet with Bali's governor. And you know what? It worked. By 2019, single-use plastic bags were banned on the entire island. Talk about making a difference.
That's incredible. Their story is a testament that change is possible, even when tackling these massive, seemingly insurmountable problems like plastic pollution. It's about having that vision, being persistent, and being fearless enough to demand action from those in power.
It's like they say, never underestimate the power of a few passionate individuals to change the world. And Melati especially seems to have a knack for mobilizing people. After the plastic bag ban, she founded One Island, One Voice, another grassroots movement focused on environmental conservation in Bali.
From banning plastic bags to launching island-wide movements, her dedication is truly inspiring. It speaks to the ripple effect that activism can have, how one victory can energize even bigger, bolder actions.
And she didn't stop there. Melati also started a social enterprise, Mountain Mamas, empowering local women to create sustainable products. Such a fantastic example of how environmental activism can create positive social change too.
It's about understanding those interconnections, right? Environmental justice, social justice, economic justice, all intertwined. Melati's story beautifully demonstrates how sustainable solutions can uplift communities and empower individuals, particularly women, who often bear the brunt of environmental damage.
It's like this whole deep dive into Climate Sisters has shown us. It's not just about being a scientist or a politician to make a difference. It's about finding your own way to contribute, using your skills and passions to be part of the solution.
I couldn't agree more. These stories are about empowerment, recognizing we all have a role to play in creating a more just and sustainable future. Whether it's through music, education, bold activism, or even just starting conversations in our own circles, every action, no matter how small, can have a ripple effect.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
I hope these stories leave you feeling inspired, energized, and empowered. The book highlights just a handful of the countless young people out there making their voices heard, driving real change. It's a global movement, and it's growing stronger every day.
It's about recognizing that this isn't someone else's problem to solve, it's on all of us. And as we've seen, age is no barrier to taking action.
So I'll leave you with this. What will your contribution be? How will you use your unique voice, your skills, your passions to become part of the solution? Maybe it's picking up Climate Sisters to learn more about these incredible activists, discover even more stories of hope and resilience. Maybe it's starting a conversation with a friend, family member about climate change and what you can do together to make a difference. Every action, no matter how small, can have a ripple effect.
Love that, a call to action. And for our listeners who do want to explore this further, we highly recommend checking out Climate Sisters Resisting Ecocide. It's a powerful reminder that we have the power to create a more just and sustainable future together. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep those amazing conversations going.